Even as written, the practitioners, if your heart does not lie in prajna completely, then I cannot say the sattvas will have faith in the Mahayana, and also I cannot say how they will proceed. So here it talks about having faith in the Mahayana and how we are going to have faith in practicing of Mahayana. So here, where does the faith come from? If we ask you to believe it blindly, believing without knowing it is a superstition. So not knowing completely and believing it, we call it superstition. There's no other religion like Buddhism which has descent itself from superstition. So if they ask what is a god, then we cannot say who the god is. So we call it superstition. So not knowing what that is, and if you just believe it blindly, we call it blind faith. So last time, Yu Byung-ha, some people believe in him, and there was so much mess about it, and we call it blind faith. And that kind of blind faith is not permitted at all in Buddhism. So you should not believe it. And even in Buddhism, if you do not believe in the law of relation, and if you only pray, and since Buddha is holy, if you expect something from him, then nowadays we talk about this a lot. Recently also, they asked if Udambara blossoms really, but there's no instance where Udambara blossoms. The flower doesn't exist in this world, but in other words, Udambara refers to the flower that belongs to heaven. So it is a symbolic, it's a symbol, but it does not really exist. And also people who use them to raise money, they are very evil. So before there was an interview, and the monk seemed to have run away from it, and he could have said that's actually other insect that was on water, but instead he lied that it is a flower. If it isn't so, then he should just say clearly, and he should ban them from going into the wrong path. But he kind of encouraged the person who doesn't know, and he acted as if that's Udambara blossoming. There's no one in this world who has seen the flower throughout history. And also, if you ask if the Udambara flower exists, it doesn't exist. Then how can you say the flower is the one that we are referring to? We will not know what the flower is. Even if it's out there, we will not know what that is. How can the person say that's the flower? It doesn't have any backup. So Buddha said the faith, blind faith, and also fanaticism. We also say it's a crazy faith. People believe in fanaticism, and so the faith of like IS, that is a fanaticism. It seems like they do not even believe in Allah, but uh, it's just a violence group which shows their faith in the wrong way, and we call it fanaticism. And when you go to monasteries and those superstition characters, the temples exist a lot based on the superstition a lot. Whether it's fanaticism or blind faith or superstition, there are so many characters of it. And so if you look at it, then and if you say if you pray to the mountain god, then he's good to you. But then how can the mountain god give you something with what power he cannot give it to you, and those kind of things. It's just so that like when you are carrying a heavy thing and you ask someone next to you for help and you get help. So here the faith is based on the wisdom, and here the wisdom is not the wisdom that's from you, and you do not have the wisdom like Buddha. So therefore, whether it's Buddha or whether it is saints who has obtained the wisdom, then once you start believing in it, you know what that is. So, oh, that's right. And faith itself is faith arises from that. So only if you understand it completely, you will be able to know. So here in Buddhism, the faith is based on proper understanding, absolute understanding. So before, when I went to when I went to restaurant, the person said I changed my religion to Christian, and so I asked the person, "What did you believe in?" Before, you never believed in Buddhism, so you just came to Sokchon Monastery as superstition, and you didn't know what that was, and you just came. And people say the Korean Buddhism is in danger. And why is that? Because there are a lot of things which are superstition, and it is not even fanaticism. There are some people who believe in it, and if it becomes fanaticism, it becomes more dangerous. So some monks they say they have become like Buddha, and those believers they become believers of fanaticism. But in Buddhism, there are a lot of people who believe in superstition. So it is very heartbreaking, and because of that, not even knowing what you believed in. But when you say you believe in the law of relation, but if you know what Buddha has spoken about the law of relation, and if you believe in it, then that's the proper belief. The law of relation and voidness, and when a human being lives properly, your agony disappears. And believing in that, and if you believe that you can achieve that, we call that belief in Buddhism. But other than that, we do not call that belief. And also, the happiness and unhappiness, no one gives it to you, but it all happens because of you. It all arises because of your karma. And having the correct belief and also understanding it, and not just believing in it, but after understanding, but believe. So because of what you should not do this, and if having that kind of thought, it is an act after the beliefs. So, because there's nothing that you believe in accurately, you do not have changes, and because the change doesn't happen, you do not change. So here, if you do not get closer to the wisdom, and the wisdom here is Buddha and the saints' method, and also their speeches, and also understanding of the philosophy. If that doesn't happen, then the faith cannot arise from you. And so without studying, if you cannot say you believe in Buddhism. If you say you believe in Buddhism, if we ask you, then I believe in Buddha. And when we ask you what belief do you have in Buddha, then you will not be able to answer. Because all the belief that we had so far, everything is so timid, and also it is very vague, and no changes are being made to you. I believe in Buddhism for so religiously, but why do I have to suffer so much? But what did you believe in, and what kind of change did you aspire for? There's nothing. And because of that, if the faith cannot arise properly, and also the things that you believe in disappear, and you just remain in a vague stage, and once you age, then you will not even know what's going on, and you will wander around and you eventually die. The faith comes from wisdom. First, we believe in teachers, and we believe in the teachings the teacher taught us. And that we say we believe in what teacher teaches us. But first, although the faith in the teacher is not very clear, if you believe in the teacher, then you accept the teaching soon. And if you don't have that, then you could also be grateful to the teacher for the teachings. Maybe the faith arises from that. Saints or saints developing the vipassana's wisdom is based on faith. So when we say samatha and vipassana, the vipassana, having a deep understanding and also observing, the faith is based on the vipassana arises when you have a proper faith in the teaching and also in the discipline. Here, the faith becomes a root for everything. So in Buddhism, we do not say to have a superstition or fanaticism, but you need a proper and deep understanding. If you don't have that, then it cannot happen. Even if you come to temple for a long period of time, and even if you come here religiously, it does not mean so much.
원장님은 오늘 안 나왔어? 에? 밤될 소문이니?
So in normal household, if the parents are living comfortably, then children, even when they go out, they are not afraid because they always have a place to come back. But if the parents are fighting all the time and wanting to get divorced, then the children, they cannot even go out, and even when they go out, they are afraid of what could happen back in the house. And children might be in a very uncomfortable situation. So when the faith for your parents are clear, we also call love. It is not that we love you, but if they have a definite trust for their parents, we forget about what's happening in the house, and we go out and we play hard, or we go to work, and just like we have the thought that we should return back to the house, just like that, our faith in ourselves or teacher or even in the truth, if the faith for the reality of the truth is clear, then there is a place for you to come back. There's a hometown for you to come back, even if you have gone out a little. Even if you have gone out, you know where to come back to. If the faith for the discipline is clear in your mind, then you know where to return to.
그래서 태어나는 것에 대한 믿음이
If you have the faith for the voidness and also for the teachings, you know where to come back.
내 삶의
It's almost like you have a big storage of food,
변하지. 그게 공덕이거든.
and that is the virtue, and it happens in that way.
이루어지는 것이야.
It's based on faith. Of course, you can sacrifice or devote with a simple faith. For example, even with a simple trust, you can make devotions.
있어요. 그러니까 우리가 뭐 이제
So, in olden times, we also had that. If we do offering for the dead without honors, then we also get virtue. So in olden times, there were quite a lot of events like that when the whole family had died,
그
or
집안 가운데 이렇게 내려오다가 그냥 그 집안 대가 끊어져서
and if they do not have any offspring, they also do the death offering for them. But despite that,
임자 없는 제사를
if
지내고
you
복을 받는다더라.
if you have, because of the faith that
하나 때문에 10년, 20년, 30년 그 제사를 다
because of the faith that it could be good for your children, and also you get virtue by doing good for others. You do that for 20 to 30 years. If you go to Andong, they also have that kind of thing. So even with this kind of small faith, if you can devote, if there are people who can make devotions for someone who is not related to them at all, it is also possible.
그냥 사실은 그렇게 헌신할 수 있지만은
But the minor practitioners of faith should be based on the rationality and also proper notion for the absolute reality.
가지고서
So the procedure of saving all human beings or all sentient beings, they should have the clear or very clear philosophical notion. It should be very clear. So it should be organized in your head too.
그래서 대승지실로
So in the middle way, or even the scripture written for the Mayana, there's nothing that is not clear. So it does not even say 4 to 5 centimeters, but if it's 4 centimeters, they say 4 centimeters. How old are you? 50 to 60. It's about 10 years gap.
차이잖아. 그 유격이.
Because we do not have this kind of law in Korea, so they talk as if it's fine even if you do this or even if you do that, and therefore because there's no definition for the correct law, so even collecting tickets in front of monastery in the law of Mayana, it is wrong. There's nothing. There's no topic of debate because once you have already become a monk, unless until it is a money that's devoted to you or made donation, you should not take it. In countries like Myanmar or Thailand, although it is a developing country, those big monasteries, they do not even bother about running the monasteries. Monks are not allowed to participate in the organization, but in the village they do have an organizing committee, and if it breaks off, then they mend it, and if things they organize how to run it. Yesterday it was running so bad. Yesterday it was so windy. It was so windy, and I was feeding the cats, and the cat's ball flew off. So the sacred place, the organizing and taking care of them, the maintenance, there is a committee and they take care of it. And they also do not talk about collecting money and doing something like that. but it's already decided
감히
there. Like they have a box for
이
social
학교
committee
학년들
of school
사이단체에서
or
감히 한
nursing
9개
homes.
10개
It
앞에
is
서가지고
already
거기에
written.
본인이
So
동의하면 부처님 앞에 시주라는 것은
so when you make
부처님이
donation for
동의한다고
Buddha, it
시주하고
is not that you're giving
여러분이
it
시주하는
to
것이 아니고
Buddha, but
어떤
whatever
사람의
you
의지에
contribute,
sul러가는 거예요.
it
오히려
goes
그게
for the needed.
대승적이다.
So although it is Hinayana, but your belief seems more Mahayana way.
딱 해놨어.
Because the donation box was already so clear. But here is more like your money is my money and my money is my money.
마음대로
And
쓰라고
although
해버리는
it
거예요.
is taken, it seems like my money.
그것에 대한
Uh,
명료한 인과법에 대한
that's
명료한
because you have no clear understanding of the law of relations.
그 의식이 없어.
Because what's no should be no. You also do it.
스님이 말씀하는 거를 하는 거고 우리가 뭐 사는데 또 우리 사는 건 사는 거고.
There is also white lie and we have to leave, but there is nothing like a white lie. I told you, no liquor is good.
술은 좋은 술이 없어.
Also, there is no cigarette which is good. Some said
담배를 피워 누가
because the cigarette is so mild.
이뭐
Once you inhale,
이렇게 빨면
it's good to inhale. You don't have to cough. But I think that cigarette is worse. If there's a cigarette that is very strong, then you might not want to smoke. And so I tell you once again, there's no cigarette which is mild, there's no liquor which is good, and also there's no thief. Who is a good thief? Is there a good cold? Is there a good cold?
좋은 감기 있어요? 예? 막 영감이 하도 일 부르면서 내가 그냥 네 몸이 좀 아파 감기가 그래서 아파 들어줬으면 좋겠다.
If you want to be sick because you have headaches at home, once you're sick, you wish that you recover soon. So the law should always be definite and clear.
해가지고 내가 이걸 갖다 실천을 내가 힘이 약해서 실천을 못
Because my karma is so strong, I'm not able to practice well. But that kind of thought is okay. But you should not think that whatever you do is fine. Because my karma is so thick, I'm not able to practice it. If you think this way, then that's okay. But giving self-excuse and you say in Buddhist teaching, it is fine. Why should happen? One drink should be okay. It is not okay. You will pay for your karma. It's okay because Venerable Jinok is not looking, but
부처님 안 보는데
but even if Buddha is not looking at you, you get drunk. Even if you're hiding,
숨어서 먹어도 그죠? 인과가 지한테 있는데.
because that's your karma.
그래서 내 말이가
So there's also saying that you can fool Buddha, but you cannot fool yourself. Karma lies with you. It is very clear in the law. You need to have a clear understanding of the law, and this is something that I cannot do. And only if you believe so, there is a possibility. But you keep making excuse and you keep trying to turn your back, and you should not try to rationalize yourself. So, practicing Buddhism, it should be rational, and also you should have the proper understanding. So it's very important to know clearly. Without knowing, I say this: the God created, the Brahma God created. But then who would know the Brahman created the world? Buddha said once, before some said, so there should be someone who said initially. On what basis did the person say so? Buddhism doesn't accept things like that. Because someone did that, it should be so. But even things like Venerable Jinok said or Buddha said, even if you assume that, how did you come to know? You have to argue about that. You have to argue about that. Nowadays, the youngsters, they do. the pyramid.
물론 뭐
Of course, since the fees are high and maybe the living is difficult, but
세상에
going to
대학을 다닌다는 게
universities,
지성의 대학을
uh,
다닌다는
you
사람은
should
그
not be
세미나를
so foolish. Argue about it once.
난 그래서
So I think they should quit your university soon and they should go and do labor. Only if they think about it once, they will know.
생각해보면 알지. 와. 여러분 어디 뭐그저 어디에 투자를 하면 뭐
Some people say that if you invest your money
투자를 하면
somewhere, then they give you a little more.
버번지 얼마나
But in place where they would give a lot of money, they will invest themselves. Why would they give it to you? Just think about it one time.
그죠?
If you can earn a lot of money, then they will do it themselves.
지가 해버리지. 무슨 그 사람이
With what great compassion will they try to distribute it to you? Their purpose is to throw the bait to gain people to invest.
그럼 믿기면 요게 믿기고
If you know that that's a bait, then you should not take it.
낚시를 가면 말이야 밤에
When I was little, when I went fishing for the catfish,
낚여가지고
since they are foolish, once if they do it, then if I threw the bait and if your teeth get torn off, then they should not catch it one more time, but they do it again and again,
그러니까 그게
and eventually they get caught. So if you just think about it one time, earning money is not something that you can earn in a day.
일확천금에서 벌었다 소리
And even if you earn in a day, I tell you so many times, but you get
당선된 사람을 잘못 보니까 뭐
everything goes to vain at once. I tell you again and again.
간 사람 당첨된
In America, the person who won lottery, 99% of them, they went bankrupt and they divorced and it's either that they died, and 1% is a person who has not yet got reached 3 years. So
그러니까 이게 그렇게
So that kind of thing never is really successful. So Buddhism
대승 수행자는 그 논리와
should be based on rationality and also understanding. So it does not even take into the consideration
A는 B다
of assumptions.
그러면 C는
So it should be A is A and B is B, and it does not even
달라이라마께서 말씀하시거나 집에 대승의 전수자들이
takes assumptions. So
그냥 이거 다 비슷하고
So when you listen to Dalai Lama or philosophers, they never even say it's just so or that. It is so logical that the Western philosophers they have no say to this.
우리가 누가 아이고
But for us, if we say something like, "Oh, I have a stomach ache," try eating that.
그
But once you start
배 아픈 거고
talking about it, then your stomach ache and that person's stomach ache, you don't know if they're the same. That's actually that you took a leap in the logic. So there comes the error. So in the way to Bodhisattva and also the Gomlim Barba or
이런 그 중론이나
Lamlim, those books,
그게 이 정확한
without accurate explanation,
논리적으로 비약을
there's no logical assumptions. Because it is so, it is that. So it's bound that we have to nod our head in understanding and acceptance. For example, only the person who understood proper understanding of the enlightenment, they can have emancipation from delusion. So now look at it how logical the Buddhism is. In this world, if we analyze our body accurately,
치수화풍으로 모이고 이거는
because it doesn't have its form, at some point of time we go through sickness and we die, we are gone. But by clinging onto this, if you think you will gain happiness, then no matter how much you do, you actually suffer. The Taoism, they actually try to do try with this. So they try to become
난리를 쳤어.
saints with this, but they were not able to do it. So no matter how much you try with the body, you cannot live for 10,000 and 20,000 years.
그러면 이제
And even with power,
그게 하우 11홍이라.
it cannot last more than 10 years. In Korea, since things go rapidly, it cannot last more than 5 years. Unless until it is someone who chased their horse, I don't think it went for 10 years.
놈들이 어느 날 갑자기
Even the person who are following the President Kim Dae-jung,
사람들 그 편에서 가지고 무슨 한시 그런 사람들 막 다 회사 때 나가지고 주 사람들은 어느 날 갑자기
I was wondering how they were able to change their horse when they changed their party from the opposition to Kim Dae-jung's. So even the power doesn't work out. Even the money, it doesn't last forever, but it's only momentarily, and you can know very well that from them you cannot gain happiness. So you have happiness for a moment, but opposite to the happiness, you know that you will have the suffering as much as the happiness you got, and if you're not free from it,
그로부터 벗어나지 않고서는
and being free from it, we call it enlightenment.
했다. 그로부터 그 되지도 않을
Finding happiness which doesn't work out, and
그렇게 해서 내가 거기에 구속되어
and also freeing yourself from the bound. We say you gain nirvana, the happiness. The happiness, if you don't do that, there's no way you can achieve it. Those people who believe in Brahman or other god, after that they say they go somewhere, but you don't know where they go. And in reality, we cannot even argue, or there's no proof that after that could happen. There's nothing that we can acknowledge. And therefore, Buddhism,
내가 이런 삶으로부터
we believe that we should be free from this kind of life, and so by living a life that's away from the greed, and naturally you get free from it, and you can also gain tranquility from it, which we call nirvana.
그래서 이거는 행위사학적이 아니고 지극히
And that is not biological, but it is something that can happen in our everyday life. So Buddha has not talked about something that could happen somewhere, but he talked about something that could happen in our reality. It's almost like this. By drinking every day, you're drunk and you have a hangover and you have a problem with your stomach and your intestine. But by not drinking, you know very well that by drinking you cannot free from it, and you should be free. You should have the emancipation, free from delusion, that you should be away from alcohol, and in that way you can be free from alcohol, and that we can say you gain nirvana from alcohol. It's not that there is something special, and if you are free from alcohol, then there is no suffering that you can gain from alcohol. So if you live a greedy life, there are two things. The first one, I have suffering if I'm not able to achieve that greediness, and second one is when I have achieved it, when it goes away, I have another suffering. And if we add another one, then we can say that You can also make other people suffer when you try to achieve your greediness, and there is no other way to free from it,
내가
but
그 욕망으로부터
I should
벗어나지
have the sense
못하는
of to
그것을
be free
영심을
from that kind of delusion.
시작해서
And
벗어나기
from the moment
시작하면서
you try to get away from it,
내가 이제
then
그대로 편한 니르바나에
you can achieve the form of nirvana, which is actually the freedom.
그건 이제 내가 죽은 그
It is not
다음
something
그것이
that
아니라
comes to
지금
you after your death
지금
separately,
나한테
but in reality, it is something that you can achieve. Buddha has spoken about it,
그리고 또
and also
무슨
it is not
막연한
something that
얘기를
he
하신 것이
spoke
아니고
in vain,
또
but
실제
he
가능한
spoke
얘기를
about
하신
something that could
것이지
happen in
다른 얘기를 하신
reality
것이
and
아니고
not anything else.
의식의 흐름
The
안에서
enlightenment
찾을
which
수
you can
있는
find in the stream
벡터를
of your
스스로 얻을 수
consciousness,
있는
it is
것이
confirmed that you can
확실합니다.
gain it
그러니까
on your own.
자기가 이러이러한
So,
방법으로
if
행을
you
했을
follow
때는
this kind of method,
이러이러한
then you can get
편안하고
this and that comfort.
여기서
And here, the
편안하다는
comfort
것은
refers to
고통이 일어나지
no
않고 하는
suffering.
뜻이에요. 고통이 일어나지 않고 편안한 모습이 될 수 있다. 이것은 이제 확실하게 근데 왜 확실하게 되는 것을
How do we know that it is confirmed? Although we have not achieved that kind of full,
스승들이 충분히 설명해 놓은
but if you look at the
우리가 믿을 수
teachers
있고
who has explained about this, we can believe
이승들
it.
또한
And also the other
가르치기를
one, for thousands of years, when people have followed the teaching, they were able to achieve it. That's why we know that it is something that is possible. And by knowing this kind of reality, the emancipation from delusion is something character that is very good. So the first one is the teachings of Buddha. By learning, because of this and that, we got suffering, and suffering is something like this, and you can get away from it in this way, and therefore this life itself has torture me so far, and now I have a little luck in at working, and so maybe I feel like working. But one day they disappear, and even when my body is being swayed, then it's bound that I will suffer, and I have lived life in that way. If you say that's true, then you should also have the strong sense that you want to be free from it. Only if you have the thought to be free from it, it works out. Likewise, the devotion proves that you have the idea, the knowledge for the voidness has been very well proved. When we say we rely on Buddha, when we are little, just like we depend on our parents, first we depend on Buddha, but when we say we return, and when we ask where do you return to, you're actually returning back to the voidness. You're returning back to the voidness. Saints, you should also know this kind of law, and likewise, your faith to the bodhisattvas, and also whatever it is that you went towards the Mahayana, you should know that it comes from the proper understanding of the laws and not from a distracted heart. Has been explained so. So here, if the faith has aroused, and when the faith arises, although I say again and again, even when you live, especially the life of women or life in the mundane world, it is very distracting. There are so many things that you can get your thought distracted. Especially, I think it's more serious in Korea. Uh, it, it is so easy for the thoughts to be distracted. So even the matter that can be solved in a simple way, you solve it in a very complex manner, and so in the end, you don't know where it began.
그래서 지금 이게 이제 믿음이 점점 정장돼지고 점점 이렇게
When the faith grows,
자꾸 이제 내가 그런 산만한 내 욕망을 위해서
for my greed, the distracting, the wilderness, without proper understanding, the habitual actions, everything, every actions of us, they gradually disappear, and the depth for your faith gets strengthened. If the sense of distraction is serious, then you cannot get deep into the study, and you cannot even believe. So, although you say you believe faithfully, it does not really happen, and therefore, even if we have a car, some people just go just to drive, and I think it's very fortunate that the toilet is inside the apartment. So if it's outside the apartment, then I'm sure that even if you have to go 20 meters or 30 meters, you would have taken the car, giving so many different excuses. Your ankles or knees, that could always be an excuse for you to drive, even a short distance. So you should remember properly, and in order to remember, you have to read the mantras and sutras, and by reading, understanding again and again, you have to think about it. The things that we think, we normally assume that while reading or while listening to teaching, we often think that, what should I eat for dinner? It's only those that we think. Where should I go to get cheap or fresh ones? What has it got to do with your studying, please? What is so great about it? With your head, this head, in this universe, it has evolved the last, and it is something that's really great. And with this great computer, the only thing that you can think about is a bean sprout. When you're just cooking, if you have the bean sprout, just buy it, and you can just make soup with it, and just you should think 70 to 80%. You should think about the teachings. You should know about the truth or Buddha's sayings. So you should think that one person has died. It is very futile. Maybe I will die soon too. So while living, it is nothing. It is just that when the breath stops, you die. And I should not live my life in this way. And even when someone dies, if you think about it, this kind of thing should be there. But when someone dies, you think that, oh, someone has died, and how much should I donate? And when is the person's funeral? That kind of useless thoughts, you think about them, and with the great computer, and with the brain that is so great, that's the only thing that you can think about.
나는 그래서 옛날에 그 태국의 방콕 시장에 잠농 시장이라고 그 사람이 그
So the mayor of Thailand, there's something that I remember because it's so hot. He comes to work in a bicycle, but he said never once in his life he went to hair salon to cut his hair. And he said he's not very aware of cutting hair. So he says his wife cuts his hair for him, and he said he has never saw mirror after cutting. And why is it so? He just assumed that his wife gave him a very good haircut. But with that, with the head, with the brain that's so great, you think about something like something so useless, but you at the time you should think about something better. You should think about Buddha's teaching, and also you should think about Buddha's sayings. But Buddha's teaching is not something that you should have the Buddha statue in front of you and recite. But even at the time, you think about other food matters and other daily life matters. So even at the time when you're in front of them, you don't think about Buddha's teachings. But I tell you once again, if that's the only thing in your head, that's not going to happen. So in olden time, one of the monks have said that 80 years old, they wanted to become monk, and so he actually wanted to be karma to become monk. But the head monk said, "You're too old, so come back next life." And so he died. And next life, when he was 7, and he came to become monk, and the head monk said, "No, you're too young." But this little kid, he said, "In previous life, I came and you rejected because I was too old, and now I came and now you reject me because I am too young." And the head monk was so surprised, and he asked a question, and the boy replied, "I don't you remember? I came at the age of 80, and you rejected me, and so it seems like the head monk is like me. So I made him. So head monk make him a monk." And when he was sweeping the floor, he was paying in front of the garden, and you should go to bathroom. And why are you peeing in front of Buddha? And the boy answered that, "Please tell me a place where there's no Buddha, then I'm going to pee there." So his question was, "Is there no Buddha in the bathroom?" So the head monk had nothing to say, so he just ignored wherever he was peeing. But when you're sitting in front of the Buddha statue in this teaching room, we feel like we are actually studying. So we are sitting in front of Buddha and we pretend. So we are also listening to Buddha's. We're still listening to Buddha's teaching, and we even see Buddha's statue, and we have also prostrated, and so we feel like we are with Buddha. But the moment we step out, we only think about kimchi. So with every thought, you should have Buddha, and but normally, when we say the person lives in a mundane world, and the person is so human, that means but it has got nothing to do with whether the person is a monk or is a saint. But when you listen to the person speaking, that person is such a saint. I have seen a lot of people who are not monk, but actually are at the stage. And even the Buddha's the teaching scripts, they have studied religiously. So regardless with the cover, if you study deeply, And every day, if you think about teachings a lot, and if you think that you should not live your life that way, and I should study better, and I should do things beneficial more for other people, if you pray so, then your heart also changes, and only if it does, this will turn out to something. You could also become bodhisattvas out of it. Only if you just think about this commercial world and your greediness, whether it is a Christian or Buddhist or even Catholic, it always creates problem because of the wind is getting cold soon. This stanza refers to the foundation, spiritual foundation, and method and consequence. If the practitioner is trying to gain a strong faith, then it is necessary for them to have developed the wisdom for the absolute reality and also this mundane world. This is being taught in the sequence or in the system of Mayana. The studying of the dependent arising or relations where you have to depend on, you have to know those basic things. If you don't know those basic ones, when I saw TV in China, where they make the sword, I forgot the name of the sword. There's also a region that makes a sword even nowadays. They make it so well that this knife, you know, the steel as thick as our finger. When they hit the steel with the sword, the knife blade did not, the sword blade did not get destroyed, but we were able to cut the steel. I didn't know that the sword is so sharp. I forgot what I was trying to say. When I remember, I will say. So with the spiritual foundation, so those philosophical understandings, it's very important to understand them, and afterwards, with the spiritual foundation, and let's say you understood the philosophy behind it, although we say we assume that you understood it, it's not actually yours. You need the method, and we say that's the way. And following the way, if you put into practice, then the consequence comes to you. And so the foundation and the way and also the consequence is the fight towards it. It's same as farmer doing farming. When a farmer does the farming, with this seed, in this farm, if they plant and if they harvest this way, the consequence will come. If the farmer doesn't have the faith, then how can the farmer does that farming? If he doesn't have the faith, he cannot even put a single seed. You need to have the proper faith to plant the seed. Those people who comes to farm, who changes job to farming from other business, they don't know that method. So they don't know what brings a good consequence, and since they have not been able to know yet, so those people who comes to village, they fail. But after about 10 years of gaining experience, then they come to know what is required and what kind of and also they start having faith or belief in the farming. And only if they have a belief in the farming, they can have a good consequence. And even in Buddhist teaching,
그러면 좀 실행을 하면 좋은 방법에 의해서
the
실행되면 좋은 결과 올 수 있죠.
foundation of the ideology and also the method. If you have a good ideology and also the faith, then you can bring out a good result. But things like Confucianism or the Western philosophy,
정확하게 이 세상을 갖다
their basis only remains still where they build the foundation, and that also it is not very clear.
이르기 위한
And also, even if they have built the foundation of the ideology,
방법론에 대해서 얘기한 적을 들어본 적
if you ask them if they know what is the method or what is method to go to utopia, I have never heard anyone speak about it. Even the philosopher Kant,
분석만 잔뜩 해놓다가
even he has never spoken about ways for human being to become happy. They have analyzed a lot, and it only ended with the analysis. And why are they
어떤 방법을 갖다 만들어서 했다
those theories? They do not have the method of practice. And even if you follow the method laid out by them, there is no guarantee that you can achieve happiness. And also,
그러니까 그거는 인의예지로서 사는데
and also Confucianism, they say we live
어떤 것이고 이 우주에
as a human being.
존재가 어떤 것이
And so, what is a human being, and also what is the living things in this world, and what are the beings that changes in this universe? The Confucius was not able to say what accurately about them, and so we cannot say that there is a foundation for it.
탄생을
There is only basis of
상당히 접근되어진 부분은지만도 핵심이 빠져버렸어요. 그래서 그 사람들은
there is only the driving force.
이해가는 것도 없고
Even the creation of this universe, the very basic or the very core of it is kind of missing. They are standing in the sense where it is not very clear.
얘기하지만 그러나 그때 당시 이제 그
And
주역에서
nowadays they talk about nature, but natural things, but
그 희미한 얘기들이 많거든. 이제 그런 토대를 바탕으로 지금 이 자리에서 다 주역 얘기를 할 수는 없지만은 그런 것을 토대로 해서
but if you listen
자가 얘기했다.
to their theories,
지만은도 사실은 그 인의 예지를 가지고서
most
인간이
the Confucius spoke about his ideas,
기본을 갖다 해결할 수 있느냐?
but with them, the human beings,
그러니까
you cannot solve the sufferings of human beings because the basic foundation itself is not very strong.
그 깊이 있게 들여다보면 사실상은 인과를 벗어난 얘기들이 너무 많아.
That's why when you listen to Confucius teaching, there are a lot of things that's outside the cause and the relation. For example,
하늘의 이치에 수단자는 흥하고 역한 자는 거역하는 자는 망한다는 하늘의 이치가 뭐냐라고.
for example, those follows the wish of the
이치가 않다고 하늘의 이치가
sky. They will blossom, and those who go against the wishes of the sky, they fail. But then there's no right saying for the sky, the wish of the sky or the wish of the god. So it is not very clear, and that's why those politicians they said the citizens are the god or the sky.
그 정치 논리에서는 얘기될
So what is the sky? And are the citizens the sky? That's the only thing that can be spoken about it in politics, but that is not actually true. they cannot put into practice in reality. If I tell you one more, if there's a big earthquake and a lot of people died, then can you accept that? Can you accept the death because the earthquake is the sky, the will of the sky? That also you cannot accept. So when you talk about something for the practice, when you're talking about whether it's possible or whether it's not possible, there should not be contradiction in philosophy. What is the human being and what is life and how is the universe created and how do they change? The logic itself, the philosophy should always be correct. The same as the scientific foundation. And since Buddhism has done so far, even through the scientific experiments, you can say they're correct. Even the law of relation and also the dependent arising, they are also correct. It is not incorrect. Through the scientific experiment, you can also prove them. The process of change, under which condition and which process, they talk about the process itself. The star in the universe and how does it explode, and every one of them, when you observe, because it has this color, so maybe this molecule has exploded. And also because of the brightness, the temperature, you can talk about it. And you can also lay out the answer. So but if the philosophical foundation is wrong, then the method that comes afterwards is also wrong. And if they are wrong, then there's no reason to put into practice, because even if you practice it, it doesn't work out. And so science, even in science, the theory comes first, and with the theory, in order to do the experiment, they give the conditions for the experiments and then what kind of result comes. And also the Dr. Wang, because in the process it was wrong, so it proved wrong. When he tried to do it as per his formula, it didn't work out. The cells, when they were duplicating those cells, they took out the nuclear, and when they have put something else, it was not possible to attain. And since it didn't happen, it is not science. But the most dangerous thing about scientists is that things that doesn't happen, if they put it into if they believe that can be done, if they put it like a religion, then it gets wrong. But Buddhism, beginning from the philosophical method and even the method, they are being experimented, and they have removed all the questions that could arise doubt. That's very important. Even nowadays, when you look at it in the modern science, and modern science has a lot of equipment with which you can experiment. And if you find problems that can also cause problems, you still take them out. And because of that, Dalai Lama repeatedly says that Buddhism is a religion that you can practice together with the science.
그래서 그 기초적인 철학과 그다음에 그 도달하는 방법과 그렇게 되면 그런 결과가 나온다라고.
The foundational philosophy and also the method to achieve, and it comes to certain result. You need to believe in it clearly. Then you will put into practice. You have to believe in order to practice.
도덕적인 실체와 궁극적인 실제에 대한 지혜를 개발해야 할 필요가 있다는 것입니다. 이것이 대성의 체계를 가르치고 있는
The reality
것입니다.
of the
그런데
mundane world and also the finer reality. You need to develop wisdom towards it, and this is being taught in the Mahayana system.
힘이 하나도
Uh,
없을
those
정도로
people who
명료하게
believe in Buddhism, you need to have a proper
이렇게 하면
perception for this,
된다라는
and it should be
그
so
과학자들
clear that
모든
you have no
과학자들
single doubt about it.
그
If
전에
you do
TV에
this, then
보니까
that happens.
달나라 가는데
Sometimes when I look at the
수학적으로
scientists,
계산을
before when I
하더라고.
was seeing TV,
칠판이 여기서 요 뺑둘리 요거지
they were
하고 칠판을
they were
떼갖고
mathematically calculating the method to go to moon, and the the whiteboard was so big, and they were writing
칠판을 뺑 뚫어서 적고 있었다.
the formula.
그래서 오류가
They
있으면 안
began
된다.
from here and they went all the way around there, and it ended there.
벗어났을 때는 방사능이 어느
And there shouldn't be any error in
얼마의
there.
실체를 어떻게 제공했을 때는
Outside the atmosphere, and how much is radiation, and
어디까지 이동할 수 있고 이런 거다
with what method you can get there, and how much energy you need, and you will travel to which distance.
수행이라는 것도 그렇게 진행되는 것이란 말이야.
Even the practice works out that way.
수행 이제 우리 이런 얘기. 만약에 윤회한 다음 생으로 태어나는 것을 믿지 않는다 그러면 수행 체계가
So we say things like this. If you don't believe that you'll be reborn next life, then the whole system of the practice gets destroyed. Why?
이생이 안 되겠네. 에이,
First, in this life, I don't think I can become Buddha in this life, and if I'm not able to do it, then I'll give up.
그 윤회하는 것을 그냥 믿어라. 그 얘기가 아니고 윤회하는 내용에 대해서 명료하게 다 분석을 해놨어.
But we are not asking you to just believe in samsara, but it has been analyzed.
그 기실론 또는 중론 이런 데서 정말 분석이 잘 돼 있어요.
In the middle way or
그 사람들은 그냥 누가 책
in other books, it's known very clear.
그 발표한 내용을 가지고 수치도
So it's not something like they have just asked for blind faith because they've written the book. But with that, they have done hundreds of years of debate, and they came to know that there is no error about it. And
지와 멀어진 감만으로는 요가 수행자의 마음은 경계들로 산란해지게 되고
only with the vipassana, with the samatha, the practitioner's heart will be distracted at the boundary. So when you observe something, if the samatha is not the basis,
바깥 경계를 보면 산만심이
if your heart is not at one,
왜냐
and when you look at outside a boundary, then you will have distraction.
내 마음이 이게 그 사마타의 생각이 딱 있어서
By looking at the car, when you are looking at the car,
그대로 관찰하면 저거는 위험한 흉기이고
if I have samatha, and if there's no distraction, and if I'm able to look at the car, then we think that that's a dangerous weapon, and that also pollutes the air, and also it makes me lazy.
없고 그냥
You'll be able to observe that way. But if you don't have the sense of samatha,
샀으면 좋겠다.
then it will start rising in your mind. Oh, that's great. I wish to buy that. Will my husband buy that for me? And sense of distraction will arise in your heart.
그러니까 사마타가 받치면 안 되는 관찰이라는 것은 그냥 결국은 도루묵이 됐다. 지 밑으로 들어가.
So the observation without samatha, then
결국은 자기 욕망의 위치로 돌아가 버린다. 그 돌아가고 나면 이제 뭘
eventually you just return back to your greediness or desire. And once you return, and if you say, sometimes I say, why did you buy the car? You shouldn't have bought it. Then, since if someone else is beside you giving pressure, then you start thinking, what are the ways that I can escape from it? Then you say, oh, I need to buy that in order to go to market. I need a car for this. And nowadays,
아 근데 우리가 뒤집어
if you
생각해
don't
차
have
없을
the
때 우리가
car,
다
then how can
죽었는데
you live? But then if you think
차
about
없을
it,
때 더 잘
uh,
살았어. 왜냐면
we even
차
survived
있을
during the time
때
when there was no car. When there was no car, we even lived better.
2만 명 정도
Because
죽는데
if you have the car in an year,
차 없을 때는 2만 명
about
죽는 게 그러니까 잘 사는 거야.
20,000 people die. But when we didn't have the car, 20,000 people didn't die. And so we lived a quite good life.
막 그냥 다쳐가 몸에 뭐 철심을 받고 뭐 무슨 뭐
About 30,000 people
여수
get sick
한
and they become physically disabled or
그럼 그때가 잘 사는 거예요. 차 없을
so
때
there are a lot of
잘
people
살다가
who suffer because of the car. Then you ask the question, when did you live better? When you have the car or when you don't have the car?
했다고 특별히 그러면
Then
차
for
타고
a human to live
다녔으니까 한 200년 더
by
살아. 그런 게
going
다른
somewhere
일이
with a car,
개떡이는 없어. 차 없어.
does anything change? Is it that you can live for 200 years more? No, there isn't anything. You make the air pollution and you drink the smoke from the emission of the car and you have lung cancer and you die.
차라고 만들어 놓은 그게 깡통이지 뭐야.
All I see on the street is just some cans. They made it and they made car, but it only looks like a can to me.
근데 내가
But someone with a lot of distraction at heart,
산란심이
when they treat someone,
산란심이 많은 사람은 그
they just go and be friends with them.
가서 붙어버리고 훅 가서
And with the chemical reaction, either that they fight or they have problems, it just goes the same way all the time.
그렇게 가.
So Vipassana without samatha,
그러니까 사마타가 없는 관은
with a lot of distractions, it can disperse in the outer boundary. So normally you have to recite Avalokitesvara. That you have to do it all the time. Then only the thought will come back to you. Else,
그런 거 안 하고 생각 간 대로 따라가 버리면 그런
you don't know where you'll be heading to, where your thoughts will be heading to.
몰라. 그러니까
So with the Vipassana, without samatha, the yoga practitioner's mind will be very distracted, and it will be as if the candle in front of a wind. So eventually you will die not doing anything useful throughout your life. Therefore, you won't be able to show the light of wisdom clearly. So that's why your wisdom will not be very clear, because your heart is like a candle that is swaying, and as with your desire, it keeps moving, and so you will have problem.
문제가 생긴다.
And therefore, you have to depend on both Vipassana and Samatha. So while you are learning those sutras, you have to think about them and you have to use them and you have to study them. And even while doing that, the Samatha has to be the basis. And so that's why I ask you to recite the Avalokitesvara all the time without rest.
지와간 두 가지 정해 이제
They always go together. Likewise,
마찬가지로 불임 열반 기법
as written in 열반깁주경,
열반기법주경에서도 승문들이
they are not able to see the Shakyamuni. That's because Samatha is strong and the Vipassana is weak.
부분이 이 승문
the arahants
아라한들이 사마타 가습존자 같은 이런 분들이
is strong
사마타뿐만 강하고
with samatha, but
관 부분이 굉장히 약하기 때문에
the vipassana was weak, so they did not have the bodhisattva,
표현을 하지
strong bodhisattva, with which you can become a Buddha.
잘 돼야 된다.
Ask me if you have any question.
질문 있으면 하십시오. 그동안에 여러분
I'm not sure if I didn't give you the opportunity to question or nothing to ask.
이제 그 인터넷에 질문이 두 개가 올라왔는데 하나는
There are two questions online. One is not related to the teaching, and the other one is the question is they want to do the ancestors offering together.
주자가 얘기한 이제
So this is
에 의해서 이제 형성되진
the ancestral offering is like a respect to the parents for their
내가 얘를 하는 것이 이제 그 사람의 도리를
for whatever they have done to you, and it began with the Confucius idea.
우선
And first, you should know
아니라는 것을 갖다 이제
that even the manner of offering it is not absolute. If we say the ancestor memorial right is absolute, we can also say there are so many countries in this world they do not have the ancestral memorial rights, but they made it
적어도 자기를 낳아준
for at least for the ancestors who gave them birth and also bringing them up. We should pay back for their kindness, and it is good for the personal development. So it is one of the custom that has been made.
풍속인데
So if we do not have the ancestor memorial right, and if you think about being thankful to them, and if there's any other way, it's good to do them. But for the parents,
부모에 대해서 별로
through the ancestor memorial right,
통해서 별로 이렇게 그
if you do not think about their kindness, and
그래서 부모의 은혜를
so if you are in a situation where you cannot think about them greatly, then
지내는 것보다 훨씬
it is actually worse than not having the ancestor memorial rights. But without knowing the original idea, it is actually a good right or a good way to repay back their kindness. But if you just think about it as a superstition and as a religion,
그건 오히려 종교로
then you are in fact losing one of a good quality in you. Or
또는 이제
even if it's not the religion,
아니라고 하더라도
generally nowadays,
요즘 세상에
if you ask a question, who does those ancestor memorial rites nowadays, then
어떤 면에서는 굉장히 거칠게 살게 되는 적어도 부모의 은혜
Then
부모를 저다 버려버릴 수 있는 그런 부모의 은혜에 대해서 생각을 안 하고 살 수 있는
then maybe it is also
힘드는
a personality of growing the personality where you forget about your parents, and also not the right one for you to bring up in a good way.
너무 무지해가지고 잘 모르고 그냥
But a lot of people, they do not know about this ancestor memorial rights, and they find it fussy to do it. If you do that despite the fact that you can afford to do it, then it is a wrong idea. So I hope you do not do that. But even the date for the ancestor rights,
이 불가의 풍속은 아니에요.
it is not the Buddhist way, but it is actually the day that they died. But a lot of you, they do it a day before. I told this so many times, but
만약 12일 날
it seems like you don't understand. If they died on 12th, then you have to do it on 12th.
11일 날
But you have to prepare on 11th so that you can do it on 12th.
그 준비는 11일 날 해가지고 그럼 12일 날 우리가 옛날 자축 인묘 이 12진법으로 12시
Before, when you calculated the annual calendar and when we thought the time was for like 12 hours,
자시란 말이에요.
the time 11 to 1, it is
12일 날이에요. 이게 12일 날.
it is the first time where it is
그러니까 11일 날
12. So you have to do it on the first hour of the 12th. So it refers to the fact that you are doing it on the first hour of the day. So why do you do it on the first hour?
돌아가신 날짜를 갖다
It is to symbolize that we have not forgotten that you have passed away even for 1 hour.
아이고
But a lot of you say wrong things. Like you have to do it in the night. You have to do it in the night so that the ghost can come to you. But then ghosts will come like a ghost. Why do you have to wait for the why would they wait for the night? So do not talk about the ghost or things like that.
이거는 뭐냐면
As a Confucius idea, it is a manner of the human beings. If you forget about it the whole day and in the evening, if you remember, then it is not good. And that's already a bad manner. It is already a not respectful way to your parents.
그 얘기 아니에요, 그죠?
So you have to do it on the first hour.
11일 날 준비해가지고 12일 날 첫 시각에
So most of the time you do it in the middle of the night. If you're not able to do it in the first hour, then you should at least do it in the second hour. So whether you're doing it 1 to 3 or 3 to 5 or whether you do it in the morning, you still are correct that you are doing it on the day. But a lot of you they do it for your comfort. That you do it on the previous day around 9 o'clock, and since they are ghosts, they will come. But still, those ghosts who are not very cunning, or they would be late and they might be starving and might not be able to attend it. So if you want to do it in the early evening, then better do it on 12th, on the day of the death. So don't do it on a previous day. Since you're not able to understand, a lot of you say you do it in the night of the previous day, but it is wrong.
어디가? 11시에 밤 11시에
Even if they died at 11 o'clock in the night, it is still the day of the death.
그러면 11일 날이잖아. 그러면 11일 날은
It doesn't, the time doesn't really matter, but you do it on the day of the death.
뭔? 아니 이제 24시간으로
When you think about it in a 24 hours way, it begins from 12 o'clock.
그러나 이제 우리가
But actually, it doesn't really matter if you start doing it from 12. But when you calculate the time, the olden time,
그냥 따지는 것이 요즘 시즌을 따져가지고 11시에 돌아가셨다 그러면 이제 따지면 그러면 야 이게 자시로 12시각으로 따지면 12일이 되겠지만도 그 24시간 따지면 여기 12시고 그러면 이게 앞날이 되잖아요, 그죠? 요거는 이제 그때 본인이 편리한 대로 하면 돼.
if the person dies around 11 to 12, but if you calculate it on if you calculate the olden calendar, then it becomes the previous day. And if you calculate in the modern time, then it becomes the next day.
돌아가신 날이니까.
So at this time, you can do as per your convenience.
이건 이제
I'm telling you
해준 거니까
in public, so
있으면 이제 요 오늘
if you don't understand, then you can
모르는 그대로 또
listen to this again online. So and also,
옛날에 다
if you do in collaboration for the both parents,
이게 유림에 그 사람들이 해야 될 일인데 내가 왜 하나? 유림에 그 사람들이
this is actually the job of the Confucius,
이게 이제 합제사를 한다 그러면
but they don't even do their work properly. Why do I have to explain? But actually, the fact is that the person that you have not seen in person, then you don't have to do the ancestral memory rites. But in olden times, it always got passed down to the first son of the family.
5대까지는 그 한 집안에서 그 밑에 고손주가
And in olden times, since they lived in a same house, at least
그러면 이제
five families lived together.
이렇게 그 제사를 지내주는 게 좋지 않겠냐 그러면
And so they said at least you can do it for five ancestors. But then if you calculate, it becomes like 10 ancestor memorial rites. 5 generations. And so if the grandfather had 2 wives, 3 wives, it becomes more. But
그게 이제 살아 있는 것을
it's quite logical to say do it for those who you live together. But then if you say for the 5 generations, after the 5 generations you can do it all together. But at this time you forget about the date of the memorial rites, but you do it together.
그냥 저 추수 잘 하고 이제 그좀뭐 떡이랑 쌀이랑 그런 거 있을 때
So at this time, it's almost like after harvesting, when you have some rice and rice cake to eat, you do those ancestral memory rites together.
사당이 있는 것은 그래서 문중에 사당이 있는 것은 그래서
And sometimes in a family, you have the shrines, and those shrines are there in order to do those ancestral memory rites together. But from my opinion, it is a little difficult to do the 5 generations. But it's a good manner and it is a good custom to do for those you have seen. But those young people, they don't want to do it.
또뭐 며느리는 와가지고
And the daughter-in-laws, when they get married, they also find it difficult to do the ancestral memory rites for someone you have not even seen. And each time you do it, since the husband is already the member of the family, he wants to do it. But
뭐 며느리는 피도 한 방울 안 튀겠잖아요, 그죠? 그것도 한 달이 건너서 내 자식에게는 피가 좀 튀게.
for the daughter-in-law, it has got nothing to do because they have no blood together. But after about the middle half of the Joseon dynasty, daughter-in-laws started doing it together. Daughter-in-laws had to do the ancestral memory rites. But nowadays, a lot of people, they do not even want to do this. It is actually very bad. They just want to take the property. The 심사인당, she didn't even do the ancestral memorial rites.
그리고 이제 유사라는 게 있죠, 그죠? 계모이 뭔데 유사가 아니고 이게 계라는 게 이게 뭐냐면 제사 계 그러니까 그 이번 제사 지낼 때 큰 아들이 지냈다 그러면 재산을 똑같이 받았기 때문에.
Normally in olden times, when they have gotten the same property, same amount of their property after death, then they decide on the day of the ancestral memorial rite who is going to do it next time. Both son and daughter, they do it together in turn. And they also write down what are the list, and
그걸 미리
they
다
they
제사
divide
제사
what
그때
to
미리
prepare and they send it, or
미리 오면 딱
they will
그걸
come
해가지고
earlier
그래서
and to
그래서 이제
practice,
지낸단 말이야.
to prepare.
이것도
But
안 하고
nowadays,
뭐
the youngsters, they don't even want to do it. The second daughter-in-law has to go to church, so it doesn't come. The third daughter-in-law is poor, and the daughters, they are already gotten married to somewhere else, and so they don't want to come. And so the first daughter-in-law have to prepare everything, and they come into an argument.
약삭 빠른 것들은 제사 때만 나가지고
And some of them, they only come for the ancestor memory rights day, and they disappear.
때 먹은 것들은 또 그래. 그러니까 이 유사도 나는 요즘에
So I think even the ancestor memory rights, you should. I think it's good if you do it in turn by turn. Even if you go to church, the priest,
좀 그짓거리 좀 안 했으면 좋겠어. 아이 그
I hope they stop.
좋은 미풍양속이고
I hope they stop saying they don't do it. It is a good culture, so it's good custom. So turn by turn, you can do it together. And they sometimes they even refer to the ancestor as devils, but that doesn't make sense. Since nowadays the reality is difficult, I think it's just purely my opinion. You can do it in turn by turn.
굉장히 공정했어. 그리고 음식도
And also the food they would distribute and they would take it.
배분해서 갖고 우리 공정했는데
They have done it in olden times. And since people don't want to do that, they do this ancestor memorial rites all together.
그저 뭐야 그저저저 할멈하고 합제사를 합시다.
And so they decide to do it for the parents. And so when should the date be for the closer to the death of the father or mother? So even when you die, you need it's good to die in the proper date. So when you die in autumn, then you have a lot of food. And so if you decide to eat a lot, then maybe you can have the ancestral memorial rites in autumn. But actually, the very basic about this ancestor memorial rite is that you are not forgetting the day your parents died. But it's very sad that a lot of people tend to ignore it. I don't think it's something that humans should do. They have given you birth and they have brought you up, and they are the beginning of your life, but you forget and you tend to ignore. It is not correct, but I don't think it's a good thing that your characters are being very selfish. And about the date of the ancestral memorial rites, you can do it on any day which is convenient for you. But I see for about 3 generations you are seeing. So although you are not seeing the 4th generation, maybe 3 generations, I think you're able to see. So that's like your parents and your grandparents and also your great-grandparents. And if you don't want to do your great-grandparents, then at least for your grandparents, I think and I think it is a little
그 아버지 어머니 돌아가신 날은 자식으로서 기억을 손주까지는 아니더라도
I think it is a little cruel to combine the days for your parents and also your grandparents. I think you can also do it for your but for even for your grandparents, if you think you cannot do it, then you can also combine it. And even for your parents, if you want to combine for your parents, then you have to die on the same day. But but then don't say die together. That means they need to commit suicide. So don't say it. So please, your parents, I hope you don't combine the dates, but you do it on individual days. But for the grandparents and those who can do, it's good that I think it's better that you do even for your great grandparents. It's a very good thing. I'm not saying this because I want to say, but I heard from in France, the the what was this Solomon University? He's a socialist, a very well-known French, and he said
한국이 전 세계에 공헌할 수 있는 할 수 있는 발전시킨 지식과 사상이라는 것은 교사상입니다.
when he saw the ancestor memorial rites, he found it very beautiful, and also taking good care of your parents or doing your formal
굉장히 아름다운 게 있다. 우리는 지금
filial duty is very beautiful, and that's one of the very good culture that Korea has taught the whole universe.
그 있잖아. 스lep 말고 알루미늄. 그때 또 노치기 버리고 그 좋은 거 다 버리고 사기 다 버리고 또 뭐 알루미늄 했다가 또 무슨 뭐 양은 했다가 또 스텐 했다가 또 요즘에 다시 바꾸거든.
The model changed the dish changed from the stainless to aluminum and bronze, but a lot of people they even changed it. Kind of rich people they do it with the porcelain, and all of them they break just like that. They change those different cultures. But even in place like Yasu, Westerners come, whether it's Italy or England, it's the same. Why would they come? They even call our Yasu the Yasu, touristic place, but
그래서 요 질문이 그래서 뭐 며칠 날뭐 어쩌고 저쩌고 한다 그렇지만 될 수 있으면 하되.
The question is about the date, but it's if possible, it's better to do it on the day of the death. But if they're not able to do it, you can combine the dates. If you are in a difficult situation, but I'm not saying it because I am a little conservative, but if it's possible, in order to maintain the familyhood, you have it's good. I hope you would be able to respect about 2 to 3 generations. You can also do it at home. You don't have to go to shrines to do it. There's another question, but the time is running out, so this I'm going to speak about in the next class.